Let's dive into these 5 ways to achieve financial freedom. Are these the only 5? No, there are several ways, of course, but we've chosen 5 that we think are pretty meaningful and that could be relatable to most people. So number 1 is paying off debt. How does paying off debt achieve financial freedom? Well, for starters, you don't owe anyone anything, right? There's an inherent freedom to not owing anybody any money, full stop, right? That is
Absolutely.
a huge relief for a lot of people. Dan, I know you and I have probably a bias towards being debt-free, even if it...
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I would call it a bias, as just a propensity to not want to owe anyone anything.
Yeah.
But it is psychologically a huge weight off your shoulders, and financially it greatly reduces the amount of income that you need on a monthly basis.
Absolutely.
If you have no debt for cars, no consumer debt, no debt for housing, if you own your house outright, then all of those costs have essentially been reduced to zero, right? So your overall monthly income needs are much lower and therefore easier to obtain in terms of financial freedom.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, if you have no debts, then the requirement of having a large enough nest egg to produce passive income is even lower now, right? Because you don't have to have a passive income that has to account for debt payments. They're just out of the equation, thus putting less demand
Correct.
on how much money you actually need to save. The same could also be said about your emergency fund. If you have no debts, those are monthly obligations you don't need to pay, thus less demand on your emergency fund. And quite frankly, going back to the employment comment you made earlier when you were answering my question before, if you have no debts, you're going to feel a little more freedom in terms of, if your income were to stop or decrease, you may not feel as stressed. You may feel a sense of financial freedom if you're not being weighed down by debt payments. You maybe that ties into how you feel about your employment. You may feel less anxiety about if you were to lose your job, because if you were, you have no debts. And so that's a huge reduction in your financial obligations moving forward. The second one, after paying off debt, is having an adequate emergency fund. Let's take a step back. Let's look at this high level. How does an emergency fund help you achieve financial freedom? Going back to the comment I said earlier about feeling free to pursue hobbies or interests or my passions, if I have a nice chunky cash position in my bank account that is
Gotta love that chunky cash.
Leave it to Danny to take advantage of my easily entertained personality. I just can't help
Always.
Yeah. But with a nice cash position in an emergency fund that's clearly defined, that's going to give you monetary and emotional bandwidth to pursue things freely. You're going to feel less hesitation to change jobs, to drop to a part-time position, to move from one location to another, to get out of a crappy employment situation that you don't enjoy, to go back to school, to pursue your hobbies or perhaps investments that come across the table. If you have enough of an emergency fund set aside, you will feel less hesitation to do those things. It gives you more bandwidth, emotionally and monetarily speaking, to pursue those things.
Definitely. It's giving you that bandwidth. It's giving you a safety net.
Yeah.
With which you can be emboldened to take risks, right? You're emboldened to take risks that you would otherwise avoid if you didn't have something to fall back on.
Right.
And a lot of us need that safety net, right? That safety net, because we need to be able to take some risks that we maybe hadn't originally planned on in order to realize dreams, and overall financial goals, or just things that we've been putting off because we didn't feel comfortable or safe enough to pursue them.
100% agree. I think the third one we want to highlight, third way to help achieve financial freedom, is simply increasing your free cash flow. This can basically be achieved by 2 ways: increasing your income and cutting costs. Now, why does this help you achieve financial freedom? When you increase your cash flow bandwidth, you are going to be able to increase your savings rates. And something happens.
As long as you avoid that spending creep, that lifestyle inflation, then you can increase your savings rate.
Great call out. Gosh, you and I talk about that a lot. Don't let lifestyle creep get the best of you. One thing I hear a lot of people say is that they get stressed that they don't feel like they're saving enough. They're like, gosh, I just feel like every paycheck comes in I don't see a large chunk of it going to savings. It really stresses me out. Well, if you increase your cash flow bandwidth by both increasing your income and cutting costs, now you're going to have much more cash flow to deploy as you see fit. Quite frankly, realistically speaking, you're probably getting by with what you have right now, right? You may be struggling financially, the budget may be tight, but you're probably getting by. Imagine if your income were to increase and you were to cut costs, you could take 100% of that increase in cash flow and put it all towards savings goals. The feeling that you get from seeing a larger savings rate is a sense of financial freedom. It really is motivating, and it helps a lot of people feel like they are getting out of the hole that they feel like they're in. Number 4 would be finding an employment situation that is meaningful to you. Now, this one's tricky because I want to give the caveat that I don't mean an employment situation that is paying you more. We just talked about increasing your income. In this one, I want to focus on that word meaningful. What does meaningful mean? It could be better job security. It could be working with an employer and coworkers where there's a shared culture of transparency and honesty. Finding a position where your skills are truly being leveraged and you are really contributing and firing on all cylinders of your talent. Could be the team that you work with, right? The people that you work with. These things reduce stress in the workplace. They do have tangible results. You are performing better as a person at your employment when you are happier where you are employed. These are important things that you should not discount when you're looking for ways to achieve financial freedom, right? Removing that stress. If you are in a position where you feel confident, you're going to remove uncertainty. Imagine working with an employer who has open, candid conversations with you about your career growth and where you're going and what your future salary expectations will be in 3 years, in 5 years. And they lay that path for you, right? That provides you security, that both felt and measurable, right? The measurable part is literally having a candid conversation with your employer or whoever you're working with, maybe a partner if you're starting a job. And the felt security is the emotional, the good feeling of having a relationship and a culture with your employer where that is openly discussed and is transparent. When it comes to matching your skills, when you are working in a position where you feel like your skills are being leveraged, you're going to shine, right? You become more and more invaluable to your employer. When you know you're valued and you know that if you were to leave your job, that your employer would feel a tangible loss to the business, that is empowering. That is a sense of financial freedom, right?
Absolutely. Always be working on improving yourself. Always be working on building new skills. Being able to not just deliver additional value to your current company, but making yourself more attractive across the broad employment market.
Yeah.
And the more employable you are and the more value you bring to the current business, theoretically or hopefully, the more they will be willing to pay you to keep your expertise and your work ethic.
Right. Yeah. You become a key person to that business, right? That's a good goal to strive for. And Danny, I think this ties into what you said at the beginning of our conversation today when I asked you, what does financial freedom mean to you? And I think you used the words working because I want to, not because I have to, right? You don't necessarily want to stop working. I think this fits into this number 4 way that to achieve financial freedom we're discussing. Finding a position where you really do enjoy what you're doing and it's meaningful and you're working because you want to, not because you have to. I think that all of those things we just discussed contributes to financial security.
Absolutely. I think I personally, at the end of the road, my ideal situation might be to work part-time in something that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
But that leaves enough time for family, passion projects.
Yeah.
Creative endeavors, such as a podcast or videos, things like that. And so having that free bandwidth and time is ultimately what I truly value.
Yeah, gosh, well said. I am on the same page as you. I think that's a really awesome, idealistic future to work towards. And the 5th one I want to talk about is having passive income, right? This is the popular one. This is what a lot of people refer to when they say financial freedom. Having enough income being produced from your assets that you don't need to work anymore. I saved this one for last on purpose, Danny, because it's harder to achieve. It requires more.
It takes a lot.
It takes a lot. It takes for many people, paying off their debts and having an emergency fund and having an employment situation that is really sound and solid and increasing their income, right? I wanted to highlight those other things first because to you, our listeners, Danny and I want to make the point that, again, to reiterate what I said at the beginning of the episode, it's not about you cross this threshold and all of a sudden you're financially free. It's just as important to focus on the journey there as it is to the outcome once you get there.
And your ultimate goals, your final goals, that end state that you're chasing, the overall, let's say passive income that you need will vary depending on how your goals shift. Right. If you are looking to live a very lean lifestyle that involves very little spending, then your overall passive income needs will drop compared to, someone that is aiming for a more lavish lifestyle, with their free time.
Yeah. And quick call out too, again, Danny, to our listeners who want a deep dive into the topic of passive income. Check out episode 7. What's the deal with passive income? Danny and I have our own thoughts, right? Some things that people call passive income are not always passive, if you will, but it's a good episode to get a grasp.
Real estate.
Yeah. It's a good episode to get a grasp on what form of quote unquote passive income jives with you, and it may motivate you to work towards certain goals. But again, to sum this up, how does passive income achieve financial freedom? Well, it literally produces income to satisfy your living needs without requiring you to work. This is really focusing on raw financial power, right? You have a large enough nest egg, whatever that means, right? It could be your home, it could be different liquid assets, it could be a business. You're able to leverage those assets to produce an income that is large enough to satisfy your living needs. The emergency fund is basically a good baby step to give you a glimpse of what that feels like, right? Because you are trying to achieve a certain lump sum to give you a safety net, as you put it, Danny. And I think that's a good glimpse to go, like when you hit that emergency fund, you're like, wow, I can hold on to a pile of cash. I know I can do this. And then the next step is just to go further beyond that, right? Getting a pool of assets that's large enough to produce a passive level of income is really next level, right? And so I think, again, reiterating this whole journey that we're talking about, these steps you take beforehand all help you achieve financial freedom, and they can motivate you to get all the way through to achieving a high enough pool of assets to produce passive income, whatever that means for you. Danny, you and I are on this journey.
Definitely.
We're probably in the 1 through 4 right now, right?
Yeah.
We don't have assets large enough to produce a completely passive level of income, but
we're working towards it.
We're working towards it. But I can say with confidence that I feel a huge sense of financial freedom even right now. And I'm not anywhere near having a large enough nest egg to produce a truly passive level of income yet. Take that for what it's worth. Again, the journey is just as important as the destination. Work on all of these areas, right? And take steps now. Every single success you put under your belt is another level of financial freedom that you've just achieved. And let that success snowball, keep going. Again, we're on this journey with you. So let's all go achieve financial freedom.
That sounds great. I hope that everyone listening is encouraged by this. Take these steps and go build your future.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for joining us. Danny, thanks for your insights as well. And we will see you next week.